Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Seth Meyers, clinical psychologist. Today, I'm going to be talking about a particular type of personality that I know can cause a lot of frustration among those who are in close proximity to that person. And specifically, I'm talking about a personality style that is passive aggressive. Now, before I get into it, I want to share something interesting about passive aggressive personality. Actually, this used to be a personality disorder, an official diagnosable personality disorder that was in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, but it was actually removed. It was removed, and it's not in the current edition because of concerns related to reliability and validity. The idea was that there is too much overlap between different personality disorders that are still in the DSM, like narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, other personality disorders, that sometimes some of this passive aggressive behavior can be found in all of them. So, passive aggressive personality didn't merit its own distinct diagnosis, that it wasn't a distinct enough, a unique enough diagnosis. So, it is no longer in the diagnostic manual. However, that doesn't mean that passive aggressive personality style is not a thing. In fact, many individuals do engage in passive aggressive behavior with others. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is, why passive aggressive people are passive aggressive, what's their intention, what's their goal, and also the effect that this kind of passive aggressive behavior can have on others. So, before I go further, I just want to share, if you find this type of video helpful, please like the video, or if you like the overall channel and the content that I create, please subscribe to this channel and I will keep the videos coming. All right, so let's dig a little bit deeper in passive aggressive personality. If you take away one point from this video of me talking about passive aggressive personality, it's this point. The words don't match the behavior. The words and the behavior of a passive aggressive person are not consistent. So the passive aggressive person may say one thing in one moment, and then the next moment say or do something that completely contradicts what was just said or done. It was almost like it comes from two different people. It was opposite. And the individual who's around this person is thinking it doesn't make any sense, and they feel often confused. So that is one of the hallmarks. Words and behavior contradicting themselves. This is one of the hallmarks that I want to make sure that you understand. Another really good example that I think makes the passive aggressive personality style very clear is this one. Someone clenching their jaw, looking angry in their expression. When you ask them how they're doing, they say, I'm fine. I'm fine. But the intention of what they're communicating with their eye and their facial expression is to convey that they are not fine. So, on the one hand, they tell you they're fine verbally, but everything else they do is meant to communicate a message to you that they, in fact, are not fine. It's passive aggressive, it contradicts itself. Now, another hallmark that I want people to understand about passive aggressive personality is that often with someone who is passive aggressive, there is an anger underneath. So, a lot of times I often think about passive aggressive personality as the passive angry personality. The passive angry personality, because so often there is this underlying current of anger. And yet, does the person who is passive aggressive feel comfortable, or are they willing to communicate openly that they may be angry about something, or they may even have become angry in general? No. The passive aggressive person works really, really hard to cloak their true feelings and present a certain image of themselves. So while the passive aggressive person is often angry underneath about something, they do not want you to see them as angry, or they will never admit it to you. They will not admit it to you. Now, why won't someone who is passive aggressive and really underneath it angry, why would they not want to let someone know communicate clearly and honestly that they are angry about something because they don't want that to be used against them. They often are afraid that might get used against them as leverage. They have told themselves that operating in sort of secrecy, this is really operating in emotional secrecy, that operating this way is a way for them to protect themselves and to be more careful. I think that with a lot of passive aggressive personalities, there's a deep down fear that if they were to be honest and communicate openly with others, that things wouldn't go well. Either that people would be unhappy with them, people would leave them, people would feel uncomfortable in the relationship, and that it would cause bigger arguments and conflicts and fights. So, oftentimes, the passive aggressive personality type, guess how this developed? A lot of times it developed by someone that they learned this personality style from. A lot of times, someone who's passive aggressive may have had a parent or someone very close to them treat them in a very passive aggressive way. So they had this behavior, this really contradictory, confusing personality behavior modeled for them, that feelings were secretive and not really truly revealed, that behavior and feelings never really matched. So it makes perfect sense sometimes when an individual has been subjected to a kind of programming that is really unusual and really unhealthy in many ways. It makes perfect sense, even though it's not good for them or anyone else. It makes perfect sense for them to use this style with others. That's how they begin to operate. They tell themselves that this is normal. After so many years, perhaps, of being on the receiving end of abnormal behavior, of passive aggressive behavior, a lot of times these individuals start to get confused about what normal is, and they actually find themselves, without even realizing it often, that they too have become passive aggressive. Being passive aggressive is a very, very frustrating personality style for the others around these individuals. It can be very confusing for others in proximity. What people really want in their relationships, whether it's a personal relationship, a family relationship, a romantic relationship, a work relationship, a neighbor relationship, could be any type of relationship. What people really want, and I believe people really need to have decent mental health, to have some peace of mind, is clear communication, honest communication, people being real and open with each other, people being willing to share honestly their perspective or their feelings or their thoughts, but to be able to do so without being punished. Now, when I talk about the word punish or punishment, this is one of the biggest issues with passive aggressive personality types. So, the individuals around passive aggressive personalities often are afraid that punishment or penalties are coming. They become very afraid that the passive aggressive person will say that they're fine, they're not upset, they're not angry about any particular issue, and yet they're not being honest about it. People around the person who's passive aggressive are afraid, I'm just waiting for the punishment. I know it's coming. Now, it's important to understand that people who are passive aggressive, they have learned to become this way. People aren't born passive aggressive. This is a style of operating in relationships and with the world that people learn over time. No, it's not a healthy one. No, it's not a good one. And it doesn't serve them or their relationships well. And yet it is learned over time. Just because someone is a passive aggressive person doesn't mean that they are necessarily a bad person. I think it's very tempting sometimes for people to label a person as good or bad or evil or amazing. It's always these all or nothing, black or white constructs. What people who are passive aggressive really should understand, though, is that being this way causes those who are around them often to feel confused, frustrated, and even resentful, that this causes consequences long term, and that relationship quality can really suffer as a result, that trust can really suffer as a result, that resentments can grow and snowball and accumulate. So it's not a good idea. At the same time, it is something that can be changed. This is something, because it has taken oftentimes years to learn how to operate in this personality style, in this passive aggressive way. It can also take a significant amount of time to unlearn it, to relearn new ways of relating, to learn new ways to communicate honestly and directly. Now, it is not easy, but for anyone with passive aggressive personality who has gotten that feedback, who has been told by many people close to them in their life, this is passive aggressive, listen to that feedback. It is important, because what it means is there often is still a chance for you to change things and make things better. And I believe, as a psychologist for 20 years now, that there is nothing more fulfilling than good relationships, than trusting relationships, than being in a relationship with someone and feeling like you can communicate honestly, you can be yourself, and the people you're in relationships with can be themselves too. That is such a good goal to work toward. Now, in my experience, I have found that actually getting therapy is really important to help someone deal with this kind of longer term personality issue, because this is a way that someone has learned to relate to people and to their life overall for a long period of time. It's gonna take a minute, but it is possible. So I will post a note in the comments of this video with a resource that you can look into. And I really wish all of you the best. If this is something that you struggle with, again, it is possible to change.